Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Oni and I'm a second year medical student. In this video, I will be sharing my personal statement with you guys. I have my little iPad here. So the whole personal statement is here. What I've decided to do is to read out the personal statement to the end, and then I could sort of explain my thought process while I was making this personal statement in case that might help you with writing your personal statement or you know, sort of formatting it in a certain way that you want to. I've said it a couple of times, but I do feel like parts of my application were helpful in getting me the admissions that I got, just because my stats were not really, well, specifically my MCAT was much lower compared to other students, especially international students who do get admitted into medical school. I have shared my full AMCS application with you guys. This is just part of the application series. If you missed that video, definitely go click on this link so you can see all of that. But in that video, I shared my GPA, my MCAT, and how I wrote about my activities section, and the only part that I didn't talk about was my personal statement. So that's what we're doing this today. Again, I'm reading out my personal statement just so that I can be of help to anyone who is sort of looking for a format or just some kind of like intuition to how a personal statement I guess should look, even though there is not really a certain format of how a personal statement should look. But you know, just to help others who are probably looking for some kind of guidance. I remember when I was writing my personal statement, I searched and searched and searched online for just other examples of what personal statements look like. What is it that I need to show about myself or explain about myself that would let the admissions committee know that, you know, I'm good enough. I'm good enough to be a medical student. So I remember looking for stuff like that, which is why I want to share that with you guys. So while I do this, of course, there will be some things that I will share here. I just want you guys to remember to not take what I'm saying word for word, obviously. Be authentic with your own personal statement. Don't, you know, copy or like use lines that I've used because it's kind of going to be plagiarism and nobody wants to plagiarize. So yeah, be authentic, be real with your own personal statement. The more authentic you are with your personal statement, the better. But yeah, hope you find this personal statement helpful, and let's get right into it. So here we go. Your baby has a fatal heart disease that requires special surgery. Unfortunately, we're not fully equipped to take on this surgery as we lack the expertise and required surgical equipment. You will need to fly him to the UK for treatment, and I advise you do this within a week or I'm afraid he will die. So said the pediatrician to the poor mother of an ailing infant. That was my first paragraph. Though born and raised in Nigeria, I had never truly experienced its healthcare system until I volunteered at one of his hospitals. Nothing I'd learned from past clinical experiences had prepared me for the turmoil I faced that day. As I sat beside the doctor in his office, I remember feeling traumatized as I watched the mother drench her infant's clothes with desperate tears. God, why would you let this happen to him? She wailed uncontrollably until she was escorted out of the office for the next patient. At that moment, it became clear to me why I had chosen to pursue a career in medicine. I was frustrated. I was frustrated at the hurtful reminder that there is still a good number of terminal diseases affecting humans, especially those afflicting high-risk populations, such as HIV, diabetes, substance abuse, etc. Having witnessed that incident, I was pushed to seek research experience that contributed to improving the treatment of these diseases. I began my research project at Dr. Dong's lab, which focused on the extinction of cocaine addiction in model organisms. Each part of this project, from animal catheterization surgeries and training to final brain analysis and extinction tests, involved time dedication, teamwork, and perseverance in order to produce useful results. Notwithstanding all its intricacies, research was an extremely rewarding experience for me in that it helped me to not only develop the right mental attitude, courage, and confidence needed to cope with near-fatal conditions as a result of handling surgeries, but to also acquire the lab techniques and skills necessary for successful medical practice to give back to an ailing community. However, this acquired knowledge and experience doesn't quench the frustration I feel each time I recall that event. The The somewhat distant doctor-to-patient interaction bothered me. Looking back, I imagined how different the scenario would have been if the pediatrician had been less curt and more empathetic. If he had explained the nature of the disease and the effectiveness of the surgery, the mother's experience might have been less drastic. While shadowing an ENT specialist that summer, I witnessed the positive effects of relating with patients compassionately. During each ear exam, the specialist would advise the patients to watch the video on the otoscope, after which he would print out pictures to properly explain their problems and give advice on how to prevent them. It was clear that the doctor was also interested in employing preventive measures for his patients and not only treating their symptoms. This extra care generally made patients feel less troubled and more in control of their illness. Afterwards, I began to incorporate more patience and attentiveness in my daily interactions. As a tutor for challenging courses, understanding first my students' backgrounds and personalities before tutoring helps me to gain their trust, understand them better, and subsequently assist them more effectively. As a physician, these are useful skills I intend to harness. Though a compassionate response may have lessened the mother's grief, it would not have eliminated it. After all, she had less than a week to secure a visa and raise the funds needed to save her child. I felt pained watching this woman leave, knowing full well that there was nothing within my power that could be done. But realizing that she is just one of many in this kind of situation, nothing else frustrated me more than the inadequate healthcare facilities, specialists, and funding in underdeveloped countries and communities. Having lived in such environments most of my life, I am compelled to give back to my community wherever that may be. I realize that besides striving to be a compassionate doctor, I want to lessen the suffering in underserved populations by being part of a community that makes a huge impact in identifying and ameliorating the challenges confronting the poor. Taking baby steps to accomplish this, I co-founded the Akshaya Patra Foundation chapter of Pittsburgh, an organization that provides meals to poor Indian children. As a small student community, through dedication, we were able to raise enough money to feed about 70 children every day for 1 year. As a physician, this sense of care will directly enable me spearhead initiatives to support such programs in my medical practices. The totality of that experience has given me an even greater motivation to make a difference in this noble profession. I walked out of that hospital with a frustration that I've now challenged into a passion for medicine. I am now challenged to change the narrative of underserved communities through rigorous work and research, and to also bear the humane qualities of a compassionate doctor. I am frustrated, but I am ready. Okay, that's the personal statement. It's a little bit cringe. It's actually a little bit cringe reading this out. You guys don't judge me, but it is personal. So I'm just going to talk to you guys about my thought process when I was making this personal statement, and just how I decided to write about this. Because with personal statement, I had so many drafts. I think I started writing this, I don't even know when I started writing this, but I definitely started writing this like much earlier before I applied. Basically, my thought process through writing this was, especially with the intro, I wanted an introduction that would capture my audience. I wanted you to read it and be like, okay, let's see what's going on. If you're super tired, haven't read thousands of personal statements in one day, I wanted mine to resonate. Even though parts of my personal statement does sound cliche, some of the things I've said, like almost all medical students do that, a little bit of that sounded cliche or sounded like similar to someone else's, I still needed my intro to like hit. Like I needed it to hit. let it just shake you a little bit. You get what I mean? So I wanted that to happen. And so that's why I started my personal statement talking about an incident that actually did happen while I was shadowing, and this was back home in Nigeria. I just shared my personal statement with a couple people, including people who are on admissions committee, and each time they read it, they kind of like were like, this is a good statement, you know, this is good, go with this. So I think it was a decent statement with how I started it, at least. So if I was to give you any tip, I would say try and captivate your audience with the very first paragraph. Make it engaging while still sticking to the topic of like why medicine. Just make it straight to the point. Don't go away from like why medicine, because that's what the personal statement is, but at the same time try and captivate your audience with the very first paragraph. So again, I did that by giving a scenario of what actually happened, something that would like be shocking to people, or kind of make you like step back a little bit, like, damn, if you don't treat this baby within a week, he'll die. So that's something that you're like, you probably want to know more about the story, so let's keep going, let's see where this is going. So that's kind of how I started it. And then I talked a little bit about the story in the next paragraph, just further explaining how this was happening back home in Nigeria, and you know why this was such a huge deal for me, and why I was so frustrated, and how like that whole frustration started. I talked a lot about like just being frustrated, and to be quite honest, that's how I feel. It's just a theme that's always happening, like just people having to fly out of the country to take care of themselves. It's quite, you know, it does get frustrating, especially if you don't have the means to cover such expenses like health expenses and stuff like that. So I moved on, and the next couple paragraphs, where I would honestly say were kind of cliche. You know, I talked about my research experience, I talked about tutoring, I talked about like my leadership experiences, or things that I already wrote on my activities section. Again, go check my full AMCS application video where I wrote about that. But again, I brought up these activities again. I used them to further explain things that I did, and I wanted to use those stories to show and not tell on my skills as a, you know, as a future physician. So, you know, for example, research, I talked about, okay, I did get some research experience, I learned a lot of things, but then I did mention that in as much as I like the research, it still doesn't quench that frustration that I felt, which is how I started the next statement, just sort of explaining that I still want a doctor to patient interaction, doctor to patient relationship. I want to get to know my patients. And then I use tutoring to sort of explain, you know, how I relate to people, how I include compassion, patience, and just different qualities that I own when it comes to, you know, person-to-person interaction, stuff like that. So I wanted to put that and show that, you know, in as much as I've had these research experiences and I've learned all these things from that, I still want personal to personal like relationships and stuff like that. So that's why I try to put it in tutoring. In the next paragraph, like, I wanted to include my leadership experience to sort of show and not just tell you that I am passionate about working in underserved communities and wanting to improve things in underserved communities, especially in the healthcare field. I wanted to show that like I have done things. You know, I co-founded this organization, I worked in this club, I did all these extra things that were geared towards underserved communities, both locally and globally. So I was like kind of like showing with my experiences the things I've done and the skills that I have developed and the skills that I hope to improve on, you know, as a medical student. Then I wrapped it off with the end of my personal statement, where I said I walked out of that hospital with the frustration that I've now channeled into a passion for medicine. I'm frustrated, but I'm ready. So again, I don't know, to me, while I was writing this, I wanted again to have like some sort of story that kind of like all merged together, all makes sense, like tentatively. That's basically what my personal statement is. Yeah, and of course there's no formats. There's no correct format to writing a personal statement. That's why it's a personal statement. It could be, you know, something happened to you personally, you wanted to get into medicine, or something happened to a sibling, you wanted to get into medicine, or maybe you worked somewhere like I did and you saw something, or you worked with someone, you know, during their end of life, and then it stuck with you. Or it could be your grandmother, you know, it could be anything. Our stories are different, and what you took from that experience is different from what the other person probably took from that experience, but you can still make it stand out in a way that is captivating to the person who's reading it. I don't know if my personal statement was captivating. I don't even know if you guys thought this personal statement was good, but this was my personal statement. And when I gave it to people to read, I wanted to get feedback, like how they felt, if they wanted to keep reading it. I think that was a question that I asked. Was it like interesting from the get-go? It was like, yes, I want to know more about this person. And then I would ask, like, what did you get out of that personal statement about me? And if what they got from personal statement is what I was trying to portray, then I feel like I've done my job. Try your best to work on your personal statement, especially if your stats are not good. Take your time to write it. Be true to yourself, be authentic. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. I hope this was helpful. Feel free to, you know, pause, rewind, go back, re-listen to the personal statement as much as you want. If you have any questions, definitely leave them in the comment section. I will be responding to whatever questions that you have. In the upcoming videos, I will be talking about my secondaries and how I wrote about my secondaries. I may share 1 and 2 things on my secondaries, even though those are a little bit more personal. I may. So definitely click the notifications tab so you do not miss when I post, when I upload those videos. Definitely like the video, guys. It really helps. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more of these videos, share and all that good stuff. If you have a question for me and you want it to be more personal, feel free to reach out to me on her med series at Instagram, and I'll be very happy to respond to whatever messages that you have or whatever questions that you have. Hope you have a great day. Stay blessed and stay safe.